Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm Colin MacDonald, and today we turn our attention to a fiery and destructive episode from the Second War of Scottish Independence, an event that became known as Burnt Candlemas. It was on this day, February 12th, 1356, that Edward III's invasion of Scotland failed, but not before leaving a scorched path of destruction across the Lothians. To set the stage, we need to understand the political and military tensions of the time. The Second War of Scottish Independence had been raging for decades. Scotland was in a fragile position, with its king, David II, held captive in England following his defeat at the Battle of Neville's Cross in 1346. In his absence, Scotland was ruled by a council of nobles, including the formidable Robert Stewart, the future Robert II. The kingdom was under immense pressure as the English sought to dominate Scotland and force a favourable settlement. Edward III, ever ambitious, saw this as an opportunity to press his advantage. The ransom for David II's release was a heavy burden on Scotland, and Edward sought to exploit the situation by launching another invasion, hoping to break Scottish resistance once and for all. His strategy was simple yet brutal: lay waste to the land, forcing Scotland to submit through sheer devastation. In early February 1356, the English army crossed the border and advanced into the Lothians, a key region of Scotland. Their campaign was one of utter destruction. Villages, farms, and towns were torched, livestock stolen, and crops burned to the ground. The devastation was so complete that the Scots called it Burnt Candlemas, a reference to the feast of the Presentation, celebrated on February 2nd. This was meant to be a time of religious observance and renewal, but instead the land was left smouldering and barren. Despite the destruction, Edward III's invasion did not go as planned. The Scots, under the leadership of Robert Stewart and the Earl of March, refused to meet the English in open battle. Instead, they adopted classic guerrilla tactics, avoiding direct confrontation while letting the harsh Scottish winter and logistical difficulties take their toll on the English forces. As the English army pressed on, they found little to sustain them. Supplies grew scarce and morale waned. Scottish resistance forces harassed the invaders, striking from the shadows and picking off stragglers. By February 12th, Edward was forced to acknowledge that his grand plan had failed. Unable to provoke a decisive battle, and with his army suffering from shortages, he ordered a retreat back across the border. While the Scots paid a terrible price in the short term, losing homes and livelihoods, they ultimately emerged victorious in this campaign. The English had failed to secure their objectives, and the scorched earth policy did little to break Scottish resolve. Instead, it reinforced their determination to resist English rule. The Burnt Candlemas invasion stands as a testament to Scotland's resilience during the long wars for independence. Though their land was left in ashes, their spirit remained unbroken, setting the stage for continued defiance against English ambitions. That's all for today's episode of This Day in Scottish History. Join us again tomorrow for another journey in Scotland's rich and turbulent past. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste you back.